That brings us over to the tag team division. And on the first Impact of the month, the main event is the Naturals versus America's Most Wanted for the NWA World Tag Team titles.
It's nice to see the Naturals mean something. And they had a pretty good TV main event with AEW.
They did. I've seen them wrestle too much now that I'm kind of numb to what they do. Because they always do like the little crowd, like they do the opening exchange, then break out into the crowd brawl thing. It's just like, all right, we've seen you do this like 4 times.
Yeah. Obviously, like the Naturals only win here because they want another AEW challenger.
Well, to be fair, if you remember the go-home show of the last show, the Naturals did beat AEW.
Yeah, because they needed another challenger of the month where they would have just beaten them for the titles again.
Yeah, so they at least set up the Naturals being contenders because they have a win over AEW, so the title match makes sense. And you do get the sense that it's like, it's time to turn AEW heel.
Ooh.
You get that little bit of a feel here where it's just like, it's time. It's time to give these guys something new to do.
I don't know if I felt that way, but like what other tag teams are there for them to wrestle?
Yeah, I think that's the big problem where it's like they've wrestled everyone as baby faces.
I mean, you could have brought the Briscoes in, but whatever.
I felt it more in the pay-per-view match than this one. That's just like, it's time. It's time.
Interesting. I didn't get the vibe, but you know, I'm not opposed to it. Because James Storm as a dork heel is amazing, so...
So they aired the Candido leg break multiple times on the show. This, again, the day after he died, which must have felt so weird.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's impossible to separate this from the fact that, like, he died literally the day before. And obviously, like, this show was in the can. And they didn't really change it. And it's so weird that the entire main event is built around Chris Candido. It's a strange one to watch. So Candido on crutches asks the people to show an injured man respect.
This is a great promo.
It's like he gives out about them showing a replay of the injury. It's like the worst moment in my life. And then like the particularly poignant line here is he talks about how nothing in the world would make him miss this moment. And like he's literally saying that from beyond the grave.
Again, very, very weird, morbid moment.
So the Naturals put a chair out for him. 30-minute time limit because this is a title match. They brawl all over the building. Harris kind of suplexed Douglas on the steps in the crowd, but it was abundantly clear Andy Douglas wanted none of that bump.
Yeah, which, to be fair, true.
Samoa Joe should have learned from him. Storm Bulldog Stevens down the ramp. Then Andy Douglas grabbed a title belt off the table, but Rudy took it away from him. Storm super kicked Douglas. Stevens hit Storm with a chair. Harris speared Stevens, so everybody was down. But then Candido ran in, pulled Douglas on top of Storm to win the belts. The Naturals are the new World Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was a good little TV main event.
So then Candido joyously celebrates. They show like a slow motion replay later of him just crying with both belts as if he had in fact won the belts himself.
Which is actually a great little thing in his promo that he says, where he's like, he starts saying like, and my boys did it.
Yeah, Harris jumped the Naturals after the match. Then Tenay got in Candido's face and said Candido was the difference maker. Candido's like, you're damn right I was.
Thank you for the credit, Mike.
Yeah, Tenay said Candido should give AMW a rematch. And then Candido's like, stick to announcing, pal. Then he's like, Chase Stevens, do you have any comment? And just Chase Stevens, glassy-eyed, was like, who won? Before they closed the show with a slow-mo of Chris Candido's elaborate over-the-top celebration. Apparently the post-match interview was ad-libbed because they were a few minutes short, so they had to just throw them out there. So Chase Stevens ad-libbed that who won line. Which is a very good bit. A good bit of business. I thought, like, you cannot separate it from the fact that Chris Candido died. And that makes you feel all sorts of different things that he's like, he does that pre-match promo where it's like, no, I'll miss nothing. And then he does the post-match promo where he's like, my boys did it. I'm so proud of them. And he has that big celebration. It's the most Chris Candido has been ever featured on this wrestling show the day after he died.
And also, it's like the act is clicked so perfectly now. Like, Candido and the Naturals together in this moment feel like a team that can carry this tag division because they have the charisma added to it of Chris Candido, who adds like an aura of legitimacy to them while also letting them, again, play on their like natural dork instincts.
And it's like, this match is such a show reel for Chris Candido as a performer. Where it's just like, he's super charismatic, he's like the great dork heel, he's everything you'd want out of a manager of the Naturals. And it's such a bummer. So they're not really featured on the shows other than that. Mike Tenay announces at some stage that there will be a rematch on the pay-per-view. It will be the Naturals versus AMW in a rematch for the tag titles. Then you have Naturals kind of messing with Hoyt in the gauntlet of the May 13th show. But that's about it. There's also a feature on AMW versus the Naturals on that go-home show, which does lead us to Hard Justice, which opens the show with a 10-bell salute for Chris Candido. And then later in the show, Mike Tenay sits down with the Naturals and he's like, guys, what do you even do here?
And they're like, we don't know, man.
Yeah, so they talk about how Chris Candido was the man who turned them around. TNA openly wonders how they'll fare without him, which seems a bit mean.
It's a little morbid too.
Like, there's no getting around it. So you have to do it. You have to address, like, what happened to Candido. But obviously, there's no, like, good way to do it.
No, it's an awful situation all around. And then they have to go have a match.
Yeah, so the thing to note from this interview is they say they've been getting some help from a legend, but they won't say who. But
I have no clue who that is.
But Candido taught them how to be champions, and they will continue to be champions against America's Most Wanted.
It'd be very bad if they just lost.
It would. So the big hook of this match is they're talking about how no team has a better championship record against AMW than the Naturals do. They're 3-0 against AMW in title matches. They've beaten AMW to the tag titles twice. So they reinforce that the Naturals have AMW's number, which is always kind of the Naturals and AMW's relationship.
I always like that kind of story.
Which is like AMW the best team in the division, but one team, for whatever reason, just has them worked out. The Natural set up a chair in the corner with Candido's towel on it, which I thought was a nice touch.
Also like a giant babyface thing.
Yeah, and they do turn them babyface after this, which is, I think, very much the right call. Because it would be very weird to be like, oh, your manager died. We all feel very bad for you now. Boo.
Yeah.
They do more or less the same match they do on TV. It's still pretty good, but it's not special. I think I gave both 3.25 stars.
Yeah, it's they're both around the same.
Though I will say for the TV match, it does still feel special to have title matches on Impact.
And title changes.
Yeah, they don't do either of them very often. The only other title change has been the tag title change on the very first Impact. And there's been 3 title matches in the history of Impact? 4, maybe?
Something
like we've yet to have an X Division title match on Impact, which is kind of crazy. Oh, no, we have.
Wasn't the first show that?
No, we did have the Kid Cash AJ one. I think that was the first X title match on Impact.
I thought the first episode had one.
No, the first one had the tag title match, which was AMW against Cash and Dallas.
Oh, and AJ won the number 1 contender.
And AJ won number 1 contendership in that match. And then we've had 1 NWA title match. So we've had 2 tag title matches and an X Division title match. So 4 title matches in the first year of Impact. That's showing pretty good restraint. Maybe too much restraint, some might argue.
Give us some more. I didn't realize until recently, how often title matches are done on TV now.
Well, you see, AEW do them all the goddamn time.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I find it interesting. Because WWE went through a stage too where, they were doing them all the time.
Because, Tony Khan's shorthand to making, an episode of Rampage feel important, when it's kind of not, is to put, title match that the conclusion is foregone. But it feels special because there's an Orange Cassidy title defense on Rampage. That's his usual shorthand, trying to give a hook to the TV show. But I think ultimately a lot of those matches could just be non-title and you could save the value of title matches.
Although I enjoyed the Yuta Orange Cassidy from 2 weeks ago.
Good, well done. They did a real wacky Tower of Doom where Stevens ended up taking a huge flip bump. It was a very wacky Tower of Doom.
One of those ones where everyone's involved and maybe not in the way that you think they would be.
It's because usually it's powerbomb suplex kind of thing. That's the traditional Tower of Doom. It's very easy to set up. Whereas here it was a backdrop, but somebody was on the bottom rope and Chase Stevens was in a very tenuous position. It was a very strange setup for a Tower of Doom.
And then it was a crazy bump at the end of it too.
They set Storm up for the natural disaster, but then Harris speared out one of them, Storm superkicked the other, which I thought was a cool way to break up the natural disaster. They went for the death sentence, and then just as Chris Candido would have wanted, Douglas pushes Harris off the top rope, Stevens grabs a pin, puts his feet in the rope as the crowd chant Chris Candido that they won via cheating, which I appreciate.
Nice that the crowd picked up on that too.
Yeah, it's nice that while they are baby facing them, they still had them win by a dastardly way, because that's what Chris Candido would have loved as their manager.
It's also the story.
Yeah, so they retained the NWA World Tag Team titles over AMW. It's a good match, nothing special.
Yeah.